coming to you live from the Show Me State, birthplace of James Mercer, Langston Hughes. It's the Colbert Connection. Your hosts, Melody and Danica, are connecting you to the world through Facebook Live with today's topics, hot button, and creative conversation. I'm your announcer, Dr. Colbert, working hard for a free meal and a bottle of crushed grapes. And now, here's your host, the Colbert Connection, Melody Colbert King and Danica Colbert.
Good evening, everybody. It's the Colbert Connection with your host, Melody Colbert King.
And Danica Colbert.
And we are here again. We're like a bad penny.
Can't get rid of us.
We keep showing up. Technical difficulties and all, we still show up. Because how can you ever get better at something if you just keep giving up? So we're not going to do that. Y'all going to see us in your screen every Tuesday at 6 o'clock. So thank you for joining us.
On the money. I might say so myself.
Because you know how we can do on some time sometimes. But anyway, so what do we got going for today, Danica?
Ooh, a whole lot going on. This last week has been exciting. Good stuff, though. Some good stuff going on.
And that is true. So what we got, what's good? Tell me something good.
Well, since March, I've been work at home.
That is good.
That's good.
That's something to say. Yes. I agree with you. That's a good thing. And Me's place has been drastically reduced in our hours of operation.
Okay.
Also,
okay.
I kind of like to joke that when I see Chick-fil-A's dining room open back up, Me's place dining room will open back up.
You heard it here, folks.
I mean, I'm just saying.
You better catch them on the weekend.
Okay. But until then, Friday and Saturday will be open. But working from home, we got a lot of people working from home.
Untraditional work at home, like things you wouldn't even know are at home.
I mean, is it a bad thing?
I don't feel so. I'm really enjoying it. You know, the DoorDash man, ding dong, go upstairs, get my food, I enjoy that. I enjoy being home with mom. I'm enjoying it. And, everybody that's dealing with the pandemic and all that, in my four walls, I don't have to deal with that.
And I think a lot of people are realizing that. It's like, man, I'm in my house where I want to be because, we complain when we have to go somewhere. But then when we're home, well, a lot of us are still complaining. So which one do we want? We want to stay home or do we want to get back to work?
So what are y'all doing?
What y'all want to do?
That's the question.
We want to know.
I want to stay at home and you like home too.
I like home. And yeah, this reduction in hours has been a good thing just because, I had been super busy. So it's like, this is good. I'm enjoying it. Now, my husband, he kind of like, you ain't opening today?
He's a little jealous then.
Well,
wish he got to stay home
too.
Somebody got to work.
Thank you on a daily, consistent basis. But I mean, because ain't no money coming in if somebody ain't.
That's right.
But is there money coming in?
That's a great question, Mel.
I'm just saying.
What do you think about it?
I mean, we got unemployment going on. Yep. We had the stimulus that came out.
Yes.
And there's the PPP and the EIDL and the CARES and the everything. It's a whole bunch of acronyms out there that's keeping people afloat right now.
Right.
So what are we going to do when that dries up?
That's a great question. And I don't think people are really prepared for the answer yet because they're like, until July 25th, we'll still be claiming that extra $600 of unemployment funds. But that doesn't mean we need to look for a job on the 26th, though.
Yeah. we wait till the July 25th, and then, okay, let me get up and go look for a job.
Now's the time. No.
And now, good question. Do you think it's going to be extended? Do you think the unemployment will be extended? And do you think we'll get another stimulus?
We want to know. Tell us
what do y'all think?
We want to know what you think because I don't feel it'll be extended.
Okay.
And that's just my own 2 cents.
Okay.
It's not worth much, but 2 cents.
Well, that's what we're about, is getting everybody's opinions.
Yes, but I don't feel it'll be extended because we got to put people back to work. The economy is not in a great spot right now.
And it's hard because once it's been shut down for as long as it was, the more you stop doing something, the more that becomes your norm.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that you're right. It is important that we get America back working.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people are nervous and hesitant, and rightfully so. But to go back to work or to visit those establishments even, except for buying food.
Right. Miss Chiquita, I hope I'm saying that right. I hate to butcher one's name. She says, I want the ability to go back to work if you want to.
Oh.
I love that.
And you know, a lot of businesses are doing that where they're working from home.
Yep.
And they're going to keep that.
I love it.
They're finding out that there's cost savings. The buildings, your utilities.
Absolutely. We can keep the lights off and the computers off and the air up on 78 or 9. You know what I mean? Because we don't have to cool the people off. So I agree, and I support that message because I would like to go into the office once a week, make sure my people are good if they want to go into the office, and have the freedom, and you feel comfortable, and as long as we're dealing with this pandemic situation, especially. But I love it. I love that option.
I mean, that does make sense. And corporations and businesses are all about money. You know, I mean, ain't nobody going just into business to say, oh, I just want to do this because I love doing this. No, you're making a business because you want to make money. Right. And so saving money is another form of increased revenue.
That's right. That's right.
So,
yeah.
Especially
while the economy is struggling.
We
got to cut the costs, right?
Struggling.
So I'll keep my job and stay at home, save a few dollars.
I mean, is that not the best of both worlds? You can keep your job,
right. Keep your
you stay at home, you still getting paid, and you can be in your pajamas. Y'all don't know if we got pants on or not here.
We
Just
do.
kidding, we do.
We do. But
saying,
I love it though. I really do love it.
Yeah.
The option.
But are people getting tired of Zoom meetings?
Yes. Chiquita, and I hope I'm saying the name right again. Yeah. A second stimulus will be coming. That would be lovely if that is going to be the case. You don't think it's going to be coming. I'm sorry, I read that backwards. The 600 shouldn't be extended, and people will want to go back to work. Will not want to go back to work. It would help if I could read. But
we keep training.
Yeah, we keep trying. Yes, the $600 bumper on the stimulus. I don't know if it's been a hindrance to the working economy or if it's been a help.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Time will tell.
Absolutely.
And we'll see. We'll see. Time will tell.
All right.
So, something else that's been in the news.
What you got?
The release of an inmate.
Yes.
Wrongfully accused, I should say. Mr. What was his name? Jonathan Irons. Tell me something about that.
So 1997, the wrongfully accused of burglary, and a shooting. Okay, 50 years is what his initial sentencing was.
50.
Now, mind you, he was 16.
50 years. I'm just saying.
I
off of somebody's word.
Yes.
Off of somebody's word. Okay.
And he was wrongfully identified. I have a hard time.
That hasn't happened before.
No, not in Missouri.
Not in any person's lifetime.
Yeah. I have a hard time. The fact that it was 50 years. No one died. I just have a hard time. All white jury. Luckily for him, there was a WNBA. She was a 4-time member of the championship, 5-time first team, all WNBA. Maya Moore. Walked away from the WNBA.
She said, I got to do what I got to do.
For 2 years in order to help him. She met him in 2007. So now think about that. It was 13 years ago at this rate. And took on that case as an activist. And that was something that she hadn't started at that time. Yeah. But she decided that this is something she wanted to take on because there were just so many holes.
Yes.
So I just think that again, was one of those highlights for this week. But how amazing is that? You don't see that happen often.
That that when I read that, I was just like, first I was like, another one that was wrongfully imprisoned off of somebody's false testimony, off of some jacked up evidence, wasn't even no evidence.
Right.
And, you know, so 15, 20 years of somebody's life is gone over a word because you chose to believe that word over that word.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's a lot of times more black males that this happens to.
What's the movie?
Just Mercy.
Thank you. You already knew where I was going. I was like,
Just
what's
Mercy?
the movie? That's the movie. You have to watch it. If you haven't watched it, take some time.
Absolutely.
It's an amazing movie, and it will bring this home, this whole situation. As you watch it, you'll be like, wow.
Yeah.
And
it
I
happens.
Think that was is that a true story?
Absolutely.
Okay, I thought
Absolutely.
So. Okay. I didn't want to misquote, but it's crazy. And people like Maya Moore who have the time, who have the money to step away and do things like that. Everybody doesn't have that. And
her salary was cut. Her salary that she earns playing WNBA was covered by I can't remember if it was her teammates or the organization, but anyway, her salary was covered.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. It's never a bad thing to do right and to try to help somebody.
Absolutely.
Yep. So give me something new. What's going on and what else we got going on? Because every day we have something. Every day.
We've had all kind of interesting things this week. So also in the news this week was the Supreme Court's ruling. Did you catch that?
Yeah, what do you think on that?
I was talking with the producer. and the producer thought that, that's great, but I don't think it'll happen by this November.
Huh.
I was like, well, I sure hope so.
Could be conveniently not happening, but okay, yeah. I don't want to digress. Finish.
Yeah, we digress. But that's amazing. All the time, and what you hear a lot of millennials and X and Y, you hear them all say, well, why vote? My vote doesn't count.
Yeah.
And you want to be like, but it does. But then you get to this electoral college thing and you're like, but it doesn't. Yeah. So I totally understand.
That is not an excuse to not be registered to vote, by the way.
This is true. We're going to talk about that
Your
too.
local elections is where the real decisions happen, and your state elections. So
absolutely.
Continue.
And that's where most of us slack in the first place.
Absolutely.
But I would think it would be amazing if that becomes the case, because so many times you're like, but we voted blue. But we end up red.
Or we voted red and ended blue. Which doesn't happen that often, but yes, it does happen. But really, because you think that the people are taking the time to go and vote because it's stressed all the time, go vote. And so many people fought and died for us to have the right to vote.
That's right.
Everybody. And it's women and black people had to have the fight for the right to vote. It was given to other people. So what I'm saying, though, that is something that we have to, it is our duty.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's almost a disservice and a disrespect to not vote.
Absolutely.
And people need to realize that when you are voting, when you're registered to vote and you vote, you're helping to put that change in whatever it is you want to see.
Absolutely.
And especially on the local level.
Absolutely. I used to slack. I'm not going to lie.
I mean,
my mom would send me the absentee ballot when I was in college, and I'd be like, oh, this lady really on. You know how you do. I'm like, really, Mom? But I'd go fill out my little X's and O's and send it back.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't, I'm like, Mom, who we voting for?
Yeah.
Who we voting for? But that was
how many of y'all do that?
Hey, I know I'm not the only one, but that's just how disconnected you are. And I think there's a period in most people's lives where you do just get disconnected. But at this point, and as we see all the things going on, I think now is the time that we start dialing it back in. Try to get the young folks. I mean, at this point, it's everywhere, so you can't not be. Yeah. We got, rappers running for presidential offices and things. And so I think a lot of people are going to be tuned in that maybe weren't before. I don't know.
Yes. Since you brought it up. We got Kanye West saying that he's going to run for president. Now, sometimes you're not supposed to say anything if you can't think of something. But I'm just saying, nothing wrong with somebody's aspirations and dreams and to go for what you know and for what you feel and for your dream. But we need y'all's feedback on that, because Kanye West running for president.
The question is, will he be number 46? Do you think it's a ploy? Do you think it's legit? If so, I haven't even heard what party he's running under at this point.
Well, it's too late to be under an official. He'd have to be an independent.
Okay.
But yeah, well, we must not forget that there's always write-ins on ballots.
That's true.
So even if he's not in a party, there's write-ins. But I'm all for him because of it's his right to be able to do so if he would like to do that, as is anyone if you want to run for an office, whatever that office may be. But yeah, that certainly puts a little excitement in the election.
Most definitely. However,
excitement.
We want to redirect your attention.
Yeah.
We want to redirect your attention.
Yes.
To the maybe cause or maybe the why or the root cause of why now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk
what do y'all
us.
say?
Yeah.
Why now? And not that you have to have a timeline, but
let's see what the people saying, man. We got comments going.
Okay.
I think they like Kanye.
Oh.
Right here. So Rev Nero says he's a plant by the Trump to split the black vote.
Okay.
I can see that.
That's a logical assumption, opinion. Yeah. Yes.
Melissa says, honestly, I think anything is possible at this point. And
we are in July of 2020, and so far we've had a lot going on. So people really shouldn't be surprised that Kanye said, "I want to run for president."
Nope. However, I would like to draw your attention to. Look, I'm gonna be that one. Yes. He was in the White House, a few months back with his MAGA hat on.
Yes.
So I just have to wonder.
Yeah.
I just have to wonder. Maybe it was a ploy. Michael and Jennifer Sharp, hello. They say he would pull Biden's votes. Yeah. He would at least split some of them, for sure.
I think that split, it would definitely serve to split.
For sure.
I'm not, I don't have that political, well, I have a little bit of political, but I don't have that political crystal ball to look into and say, yeah, this was definitely would be what would happen in splitting the vote or taking it all from, but man.
Stay the course.
I can't.
Look, stay the course.
I can't.
Just, that's all you can really say.
Yes.
Do your homework and stay the course.
There you go. Do research. It is vital to do research. As with any candidate, it is vital to do research. Your own research.
Absolutely.
Not from the media, not from news sources, not from what your grandpa's people no, just do your own research. Knowledge is a good thing.
Or you can call my mom and she'll tell you who to vote for.
And she will tell you. Aunt Diane will tell you unabashedly.
Yeah, who to vote for.
Well, this is what I think.
This is who we vote
for. This is who we voting for. Okay.
Hey.
But yeah, and another thing, since we're on voting, the registration.
It's not exactly easy.
It's not.
I've messed around on the website just because I wanted to be able to tell someone. I've been registered to vote, like I said.
Me too.
If you're not registered, it's not exactly easy to navigate the site.
If you've never been on it, yes.
Also, waiting in the line at the DMV, especially here in Joplin, is long and tedious. And if that's the only thing you're going there for, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
Dragging a child to go register to vote, and you got to stand in that line.
Yes. You can do it online now. That's the good thing. And you can also fill out forms. And lots of churches and different places have these forms. Or you can pull them off of the .gov. It's a .gov. Look it up. Voting registration. And it'll pop it up.
For you. How's that?
But the thing is, register to vote.
Please.
And for Missouri, for the August elections, you need to be registered by tomorrow if you want to vote in August elections. Those are your crucial elections, people. Your state, your local and your state is where you can make the difference. You need to be registered to vote. Please.
We are working on a special guest to come and talk a little bit more about
Absolutely.
that. So stick with us. Also, we're going to talk about some different things in regards to voting, like why don't we require that before you graduate from college? Or high school, I'm sorry. But why isn't that in something that your counselors talk to you about before you get your papers and sign out? I've got all my credits, I'm good. Yeah. Here's your register to vote. Why don't we handle that?
Well, there's a lot of things we could probably improve on, and
right.
that would be one of them, because we have to prepare the youth for these leadership positions, and to just function and to survive out in the world once they get out of high school.
Yep.
Reality does set in.
Oh yeah.
Bills. It's called bills, utilities, gas, insurance, FICA, and all of that. Yeah, and why they take my money? Exactly.
But
So that's and I think our guest today is going to be able to touch on some of that.
Most definitely, lots of the systematic.
Yes, because if we look at it, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I don't know if y'all are ready yet for what Dr. Jordan Burton, look, I'll put it on you. Look, Dr. Jordan Burton's about to bring to the table.
Yes.
I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there for you.
It's about time to cue him on in anyway. We'll let you go ahead and cue him on in, because Jordan is a Joplin native. He's actually another son. Well, she's way too young, but that was son. And this young man has moved away and made Joplin proud. And it's always good when you have somebody who returns back, even if it's for a minute, if it's for just
The summer.
Yeah, if it's a break during their work. It's always good to have them come back and talk to young people, or just to help with mentoring, just spread some knowledge,
Right.
and share some experiences outside of Joplin, because there's life outside of Joplin.
Say what?
Dare to dream. I know. Dare to dream. There is life outside of Joplin. And so, without further ado, we're going to introduce Jordan Burton and have him give us some words of wisdom. Let him do his little own introduction. I always like to let people do their own introduction. So, Mr. Jordan Burton.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. Very excited.
We are excited, because I talked to this young man a couple weeks ago when we were at one of the protests, and I really only say protest, I'm calling demonstration, because it was a demonstration, and we visited, and he's got some knowledge to drop. He really does, and stuff you need to pay attention to on some of the origins of why we have been going through some different things, and why things are the way they are beyond what we see,
Right.
and what we think we see.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Jordan, go right ahead.
Thank you guys for having me. Like you mentioned, I'm very, very fortunate. Spent a lot of time in media. Actually spent some time in the political side as well. And I don't know if a lot of people know that in 2008 I worked on Obama's campaign in Missouri. In 2012 I worked on Jay Nixon's re-election campaign, his gubernatorial run in Missouri as well. So got a really good taste of the political side. My degree is actually in political communications. I thought I wanted to work on campaigns, and I did too. And I was like, I'm good for a lifetime.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting in sports writing. Did that for about a decade, and I love basketball, so I ended up getting in coaching. Coaching is a unique way to kind of tie everything together. You get to work with people, you get to work with sports. Truly, I think the best way to make an impact, because you're with those people every day, and you can really kind of help them not only athletically, but also my basketball team in North Dakota was 75% black. So it's a lot of young men where we can kind of help guide them in terms of what they're seeing in the world around them that they may not be exposed to. So,
and we need to make sure that our strong black males are visible to a lot of our youth,
right? Especially in education.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, you talk about the systemic side of oppression, and that might be the biggest thing. And so whenever I say white people, I feel bad because I'm generalizing. And I'm saying white people in general. I don't mean you specifically. I mean in general society.
Gotcha.
Right?
Just like black people get generalized.
Exactly.
Okay,
100%.
I got you.
Right. So I think in society we look at the black family. Right.
Okay.
We talk about black fathers are absent and this and that, and we blame that on the black plight, which is accurate. But understand why black men are historically absent. This is part of the systemic side. So from a slavery standpoint, the way to keep people enslaved was to break the family. If you tear the man out, right?
Absolutely.
You force the mother to care and raise a skittish child, a scared child based on the environment they're in. you break the male, you take his mind, you keep his body so he's able to work. That's how you start the cycle of slavery. So we repeat that for generations,
Absolutely.
and then we hit Reconstruction. Well, we don't have slavery anymore. So what can we do? Well, we start convict leasing. We start sharecropping. We start imprisoning black men, right? So even though the method is different,
Right.
the result's still the same. We're still breaking the family, right?
Right.
And as long as the black family is broken, it's a lot easier to manipulate and maintain this power structure we have. And I mean, think about the way things are right now.
Yeah.
The kids that I coach very rarely have a 2-parent household in black situations.
Okay.
And I mean, we're talking about dozens of kids, and you can go through each one. Father dead, father in jail, parents not together. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I understand that on the black side, it happens at a disproportionate rate.
Absolutely.
And I legitimately feel that some of that is a learned behavior. We've repeated that cycle so much that it's almost second nature. You know, whenever we see it, we don't even bat an eye. Oh yeah, that's not in the picture. That's a normal thing about how many men you know in that, or women as well.
Absolutely.
Black women are robbed by not having black men in the house as well. So I mean, it's one of those things where I truly feel like that's a small level of what we would call the systemic side of it, and it's one that we get blamed for, but maybe we shouldn't, because this is 400 years in the making. We've taught blacks to be like this. We've literally made our plight part of that.
Wow.
And I think whenever you look at the family structure, when you look at education, when you start looking at, well, here's why blacks are behind. Well, yeah, it's part of the plan. That's literally part of what we want.
Absolutely.
Black graduation rates, black college education rates are not even close to being proportionate to whites.
Right.
Why? Well, in black communities, in urban communities, schools have less.
Yeah.
The resources are less.
Absolutely.
So if that's the case, they're less likely to go to college, right? At one point in Missouri, Kansas City and St. Louis both had unaccredited school systems, public school systems. The two biggest areas in Missouri in inner cities didn't have accredited public school systems. Well, who goes to those schools?
Predominantly black.
And as long as the issue is only a black issue, it's not going to get addressed. If I'm a parent in Seneca, Missouri, why do I care if Riverview Gardens is unaccredited?
Absolutely.
Why do I care if their funding is not accurate? Because it doesn't impact me.
And you make that point, you know, when he says, as long as we're trying to keep it a black issue, a black or white issue, then we're never going to get anywhere with it.
Right.
Because black and white's been around forever. But that's a good point you said. Go ahead.
And see, actually, I worked a little bit in education. I teach classes now in college, and one thing I thought about is, why do we not have a funding that gets away from a state level, right? So right now we fund schools based on, you know, you have this many businesses in your town, we'll take taxes from those businesses, we'll pump it into schools.
Right.
Cool. So in great affluent neighborhoods, you're gonna have great school systems. In neighborhoods where there's only a corner store and you know, whatever, you're not gonna get funded the same way.
Right.
Why? And as long as that's the case, white people, I'm sorry, I'm gonna generalize, will continue to ignore the issue.
It's
so
true.
Why do we not look at every school and say, okay, we'll give you whatever the number is, $50 per kid. That's what your funding is, $50 per kid. That way, every school in Missouri gets the same amount of funding for the amount of kids, right? So if it's in Southwest Missouri and St. Louis, exactly, and they both have 1,500 students, they get the same amount of money. At that point, you're gonna impact white people, because they're going to start being like, oh, hold on, my money's getting sent here and here and here. Cool, because we want equal education. We want equal opportunity. And I guarantee you'll start seeing change in education.
Yeah.
Because we're okay with sucking money out of education right now, because who does it impact? This.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I truly feel like as well. Education changes the whole game. Whenever we start having adequate education, if you can save a kid at 5, 6, 7 years old, you don't have to worry about them at 25, 26, 27.
Right.
Because they've had that background, they've had that forming. Well, as long as we continue to put kids in situations where maybe they don't have great preschools, maybe they're not getting developed well enough early, and then all of a sudden they're lost in the system, they're behind, and they're not at an adequate level, well, yeah, we're going to have people who are behind. And it's tough to have those opportunities. So I truly feel if there's a way to just flatten all that. You know, right now we have disproportionate rates. If we can make that equal, maybe it makes it a little bit easier on us to achieve and have a level playing field. And
equity.
Exactly.
Equity.
And one thing you and I talked about was the playing field is unlevel right now, because who does it benefit?
Right.
And at the end of the day, as long as the benefit is still there for people, there's no reason to change the system.
So I got a question.
Oh.
Right. Sorry.
No, you go ahead, because it may be just what I'm thinking.
It might not be, but it might be. So I'm about problem and solutions. So how do we begin to implement? Where do you start? Where do you start?
The best thing you guys said earlier was talking about local elections, because people are so jaded to politics and they look at, the presidential election. Your president, to be honest with you, your president matters very little. Your Congress matters. That's where the true power is.
Your legislative branch.
Exactly.
You gotta know it. They gotta know it.
There's a reason why Strom Thurmond stayed in Congress for 70 years. Literally, he was in there forever, because he had more power in Congress than he ever would have making a run for president.
Yeah.
And that's for any person in Congress right now. So I truly think you have to pay attention to your local levels. Your local levels being city, county, state level.
Yep.
Obviously, as we start getting into congressional seats, that matters as well. But I think if you get people invested in their local communities, it's easier to enact immediate change.
Right.
And then that local change can become a state level change.
Right.
And then that state level change will start getting movement nationally. Right. And you started seeing people, I mean, even before Obamacare, and I hate calling it Obamacare, because at the end of the day, regardless of how you feel about Obamacare or President Obama in general, that was one of the most progressive pieces of legislation that looked out for all people.
Right.
And again, my white brothers and sisters, you have to understand that in general, the power structure doesn't care about you either.
No.
They care about money. So if you're not hitting a certain threshold, you're a light-skinned woman.
Yes, as Jane Elliott said, you a faded black person.
Thank you.
That's it.
And that's where I kind of struggle, because I think some people kind of gloss that over and think that these are black issues. Systemic oppression isn't a black issue; it's an American issue. It's a female issue. It's a Hispanic issue. It's a black issue. It's an Asian issue. It's a Native issue. It's a transgender, gay, whatever you want to call it. We all have our plight, and it's all. Without being too crazy, at the end of the day, we all have the same oppressor, and our oppressor looks the same. And until we're able to truly fight for each other to end systemic oppression, we'll continue to be marginalized in different ways, based on whatever group we're in.
And that's a good point you bring up, because it is about, people think it is about the black and white. It's about suppression.
Correct.
It's about control, power and control.
Correct.
And the more people who have that power, yes, they're going to buck if it's trying to be changed. People who benefit from something will raise the loudest fuss for change.
Correct.
If change is going to happen, because nobody wants to lose that benefit.
Correct.
And that's what we're seeing here. It's like the pushback is real,
100%.
But it's like you said, are we pushing against the wrong thing?
And here's one thing, whenever you look at the pictures of the rallies and the videos and stuff, you typically see some black people, you see some people of color, but you also see a lot of women, correct? White women. Who don't you see overly represented in these protests?
I'll let you say it.
It's white men.
That's right.
Because at the end of the day, and my white friends, I have awesome white friends.
Absolutely.
Some of them are males, and some of them don't understand that part of the issue is that white men of power, at the end of the day, if we level the playing field, who loses? Right now, it's white men, that's truly the only demographic that is hurt, because right now you look at Congress historically, 97% white male, right? When you look at all Fortune 500 CEOs, what do they look like? They're white men. You look at coaches and owners in sports, white men.
Yeah.
And so
same picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you level the playing field and you start giving more people seats at the table, that means a white man has to get up.
Yeah.
And I tell my friends, if you're serious about change, understand that this change will come in the form of your success.
Yeah.
Because right now, let's say you're competing against 60% of America. Well, you open that up to another 40%. What does that look like? It's harder for you to get those same advantages that you've had historically. And I think that's one thing to keep in mind. And whenever white men want change, that's whenever we'll have change. Because at the end of the day, the Congress looks the same. The people in power look the same.
Yeah.
We're going to get change whenever we motivate them enough to change. And I think that that's going to continue to be the issue. Yeah. And right now, you talk about the pushback. The pushback comes because people are tired of hearing about this, and when's it going to stop, and when's it going to stop?
Yeah.
And I had someone the other day tell me, I'm really surprised that all this has come up lately. And I was like, lately? If black people wanted to complain about the systemic side of oppression, we would be on the corner every day for the last 400 years. Every day. It can be one of those things where we try to do it quickly, or you can. I feel like they don't understand just how long this has gone on, and how underlying it is, and how ignored it is in education and academia. And at the end of the day, that's part of the problem, is because it's not in their awareness.
Absolutely.
It
doesn't affect
out of sight,
them.
out of mind. Exactly.
They don't see it. So if you're not, it's just like you go out, if you don't know that it's hot outside, it's not bothering you, but to that person sitting out there sweltering, dying in the heat, it's greatly affected them. But until things are on your front doorstep, just like with the virus, anything like that, until it affects you,
Right.
you don't see a benefit or a need to do anything different.
100%. That's why I truly feel like, from the educational standpoint, whenever you start taking money and making every school equal,
Man,
you'll get changes.
I love that.
Think about how much we've seen people gut money from education at
Yeah.
state level.
Oh.
They'll stop gutting whenever they start seeing white schools impacted by the
Right.
gutting that's going on.
Right.
And you and I talked about at the protest. At the protest. First of all, I just want to say something. I'm gonna get on a quick tangent. A protest without a goal or without action
there's
is
that.
a gathering.
There's that.
It's slightly different. So understand that we have to have some kind of not only we have a message, right?
Right.
We have to have, you said solutions. We have to have solutions. We have to have steps we want to take. And so at that, we talked about, how do we further the cause?
Yes.
And my biggest concern is that we'll look around 2 or 3 months from now, whenever Corona goes away and things start to settle down, that we didn't accomplish what we needed to accomplish. And you and I spoke at length about if this remains a police brutality issue and we ignore the systemic side of oppression, we lost. Because at the end of the day, police brutality impacts us. We all get pulled over, and nobody likes that. But at the end of the day, lack of education, lack of opportunity, lack of resource, high abortion rates in cities, those are things that impact our community every day in millions by the number. So if we continue to have the narrative of police brutality is the issue, we won't change systemic oppression.
Right.
If we change systemic oppression, we can naturally change police brutality within that. And I think that's where we have to be very direct in what we want. And we can't just continue to beat the same drum of, we don't want cop shooting. Of course we don't want cop shooting.
Yeah.
But we also want to see the table. We also want education.
Yeah.
We also want ethnic divides to go away from job applications and housing loans and business loans. There are things that need to happen from a societal standpoint that are so far removed from police brutality that if we don't get that, we're going to be fighting the same battle over the next 10, 20, 50, 100, 400 years.
And people say that you don't even look to, why do we have list your race, what race are you or what ethnicity are you on applications, No, I know. Yeah. It's like, but people don't, and I'll let you go ahead and do it, but it's like, why do you think that's on there, people? Why do you think affirmative action had to be in place? Why do you think these things? But go ahead, I'll let you.
And that's why I think that, again, why people apologize. I don't think they understand that these things are in place because that's the only way to help fight against systemic oppression, systemic racism. And if your race didn't matter, if it was truly about money and your financial wherewithal, race wouldn't be on there.
Wouldn't be on there.
Gender wouldn't be on there.
Would not be on there.
We have to include that so that we have, for them, so they have a way to discriminate.
Yeah,
and for us, so we have a way to implement affirmative action. Affirmative action shouldn't have to exist. It has to exist because we don't have equal opportunity.
And that's
part, and right. And we keep playing the same cat and mouse game where I think that people in society just don't quite understand how far-reaching this is.
Yeah.
And
how deep it goes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And for women of color, you guys have it tenfold because you're getting hit on you're a female and you're black. Like where do you win?
Yeah.
And it's funny because we all have our own fights, but man, I struggle because we just, as a society, historically, we've ignored a lot of this that goes on. We sweep it under the rug. We suppress it. We find cool ways of getting around it, and we change what it looks like. We change the name. But at the end of the day, the game stays the same. Until we change the game.
And the players.
Right. You're right. You're 100% right.
I think it's funny how you mentioned about. I'm sorry. I think it's funny how you mentioned. She did my mom thing. Speak up. I can't hear you. How we mentioned being females and African American. So we have always been taught in our way of working around, work harder.
Right.
You go out to the field, the court, or whatever, play harder. You practice on the weekends. Like those were the things that we were taught because we wanted to do better, right? So we went to school, we got those degrees, all those things that you had to do because not having them wasn't an option.
Right.
The positions that Mel has held, the positions that I have held, if I didn't have a degree or didn't have that better than you attitude, like I just have to work harder. I just have to make my team. You know what I mean? Like if you didn't have that, if someone didn't instill that in you, then you're not gonna have those positions, those opportunities. Right. So I think it's interesting that you said find a workaround, and it's like our whole life has been a workaround. So when do we get a chance to stop having to find the workaround? Why can't we just go from A to B like you?
Right. And,
yes.
And that's the thing that hurts because
we gotta go like this.
Right. Yeah. You're running it, and it's funny because there's the experiment where they have the kids line up and they say, if you have a 2-parent household, take a step
Love
forward.
it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And so it's funny because we look at the black position, and you hit the nail on the head whenever you say people say work harder, or that hard work gets you what you want. It doesn't. It doesn't. And at the end of the day, I saw someone mention a quote, and they said. Someone was like, well, make better choices. And from the black standpoint, is well, you have better choices. You have better options, essentially. And it's just crazy to think that whenever we look at black people, I feel like society loves to pick out the ones who have ascended, right?
Yeah.
We've risen, and they're like, well, you're different. Well,
Yep.
No, I'm not different. I was fortunate to have great opportunities. For me, I went to all white schools.
Yeah.
I went
just going here.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We were all very fortunate to be in situations where we went to, what do they call them? PWAs, public white institutions, PWIs.
Yes.
Yeah, where we went to great white institutions and had a chance to get great educations, which continue to propel us forward. There's a kid my age in St. Louis or in Milwaukee or Chicago who didn't have that opportunity. And at the end of the day, that's what we're fighting for.
Yeah.
Because again, you're continuing to play with an unlevel playing field. And we shouldn't have to go to white schools or live in white towns to have the same
quality
opportunities.
education. Absolutely.
And right now, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I feel like society likes to pick on, well, this person made it out. Why can't everyone?
Yeah.
You're telling me the outliers should be the norm? Is what we're getting at? And again, as long as we continue to play that game, and you guys see it on Facebook where people pick out quotes of Candace Owens or insert other conservative black person here as to how all black people should feel. And it's like you're picking out outliers and trying to apply that to an entire population of people. And that's not a realistic way to truly view or understand the black experience.
Absolutely.
I'm sure for you guys it's exhausting as well, seeing social media and being like, can we stop?
But this is why this whole thing came about, though.
Yes.
We were like, we have to do something. Because there's people that maybe don't have that friend that they could ask a question.
Right.
I don't understand, or why do y'all look at it this? They can't have that conversation.
True.
Luckily, most of us have those friends that don't mind picking up the phone, like, hey, Jordan, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Tell me about, whatever. But that's why this whole situation came about. We wanted, like, hey, we got to educate people. Because some people will never know if we don't try to help it along. Right. So this was our A to B. We're like, here's the problem. Yeah. How can we, in our little world, implement a solution? Well, we got this big thing called Facebook, and if we go live, we got this huge network of people. Right. You know what I mean? You tag in, you got your huge network of people. It was a way to help somewhat bridge the gap. Right. Yeah. Because it's so much bigger than what the three of us can do. Right. It's more of who of the white friends, as we would say, can we link into this, and they understand where we're coming from to make the difference. And it stinks that it has to include people of less pigment, to get our point across about what needs to change. But like you said, if you look at the systematic pieces, it's so much more than the color.
Absolutely.
100%.
And if people look at it that way, I think this wouldn't even be an issue if they really bought in.
Yeah.
Very true. And it's crazy too because blacks make up 14% of the population.
14.
We don't have the resources, the ability for us to make change on our own is minimal. It will not come without white people involved, and that's the toughest part is, whenever I have white friends on Facebook who are like, well, I'm just kind of sick of hearing about it. It's like, here's what hurts me, because my future kids won't see a different life unless you understand why you have to be invested. Right. And that's the toughest part. Is there's no part of this that we can move on our own.
Right. And we're tired of hearing. We're living it. Correct. So you're tired of hearing about it, but we're tired of living it.
Correct. Very true. Very true. And the uncomfortable conversation that needs to happen is, why is the black plight removed from history? Why is it removed from your narrative? 100%. And you talk about Juneteenth. You talk about Black Wall Street. You talk about the Iran-Contra and the pushing of crack cocaine into black communities. Yeah. That's not in history books. Yeah. You don't learn that. I have advanced history courses on my transcript.
Ain't in a one.
Never heard about it. Never heard about it. And the thing is, whenever you bring stuff up like that, they're like, well, that's an isolated incident. No, it's throughout history. It's throughout. The Tuskegee experiment, throughout history. We have so many instances throughout American history where blacks have been used or targeted in crazy ways that have truly led to where we're at in 2020. You look at the war on drugs, the war on crime.
Yeah.
How that relates to 2020 today.
It's an epidemic.
Oh my word.
Oh, it's an opioid.
That
Right.
It's an epidemic now.
100%.
Yeah, and
right.
it needs to be treated, and it's a sickness, a
Exactly.
disease.
We need to worry about people. We need to help people. Oh, in the 80s though, whenever
It
we
was
were flooding
war.
crack cocaine into streets
War.
to help buy weapons to fund other countries.
War.
And the crazy thing is, and here's what I just had a conversation with the young man. We were talking about the Iran-Contra and how, they used crack cocaine, which is crazy. They took cocaine from Colombia, brought it to America, made crack cocaine, put it in black communities.
Yes.
Took that money to buy weapons.
And for over
right?
there, yeah.
Which, if you don't believe me, I promise you,
Oh, it's
Google
true.
it, it's documented.
Yeah.
Right? Some people even say they flew the crack into Arkansas, and there's also documented cases of people being murdered in Arkansas who saw the drugs coming in. But long story short, whenever we go back and look at it, that's part of the black plight.
Yeah.
You take crack cocaine, you put it in black communities. You then target blacks disproportionately. What's one of the hardest criminalized drugs in America?
Yeah.
Crack cocaine.
Yes, it is.
Who
Where
uses
does
crack
that come
cocaine?
from?
Black people.
Yeah.
But where does it come from? What is it in bigger form? We won't go there.
And
Be like, you
That's another
know.
day's story.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's part of the issue. And so then whenever we follow that up with the war on crime and the war on drugs, right? We established mandatory minimums. We used 3 strikes and you're out.
3 strikes.
We coined super predator,
Yep.
which was Hillary, She helped push that. And then all of a sudden we're using the crack that was put into black neighborhoods by our government to then incarcerate black men at a disproportionate rate. Again, by
And
our
you
government.
wonder why they're not in the home.
Exactly. And
Full
then
circle.
you also wonder why private prisons are a multi-billion-dollar industry right now.
That's a whole
Well,
other segment.
And thank you. Yeah, as long as you take black men, you put them in jail. 6% of the population, 25% of the prisoners in the territory.
Slave labor.
In America, exactly.
Slave labor.
And that's
It's
the
a new
other-
slavery.
And that's the other thing. And I encourage you again, if you aren't familiar with convict leasing, if you're not familiar with the 13th Amendment,
13th
the
Amendment,
verbiage, right?
yes.
And the fact that you can be a slave
Yes.
as long as you're a criminal.
Absolutely.
Well, you don't understand why people are targeted.
And y'all need to watch that movie if you have not seen it. 13.
Correct.
Watch
And-
it.
And it's one of those things where we've literally made it,
Yeah.
we've encouraged law enforcement to target people, specifically black people, because at the end of the day, we profit. Right? As long as people profit off of other people being incarcerated, why would cops stop pulling people over?
Yeah.
Why would they stop targeting black people?
Absolutely.
Why would they stop over patrolling black neighborhoods?
Yes. And patrolling.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's at the end
Policing.
of the day, 100%. At the end of the day, the system's not broken. We see it as broken,
Yeah.
but in the grand scheme of things, it's not broken. It's exactly what it should be.
It was
We needed a way
designed.
to transition. We've never had, think about this, in American history, we've never, ever, I'm going to say it one more time, ever had a period of time where there wasn't free labor. Whether we're talking about going from slavery or going to sharecropping, which technically wasn't free, but might as well have been free, to convict leasing, which, by the way, real quick, convict leasing was you could literally go rent a criminal and they would basically be your slave. You had to feed them.
You had to
feed them, but hey, they would do your work.
Yeah.
And that wasn't outlawed until 1941 under FDR. So think about that. We're not talking about 100 years ago.
Yeah.
We're talking about, we know people who were alive in 1941. So that's the crazy part. But again, convict leasing to now our mass incarceration system where we have criminals, where we have people who have been convicted of crime. I won't even call them criminals because as we're starting to see, a lot of men aren't even criminals.
Yes.
But as long as we make it possible for people to profit off that, we're going to have slave labor. We've had that for 400 years and it's going to continue in some form or another. We changed the verbiage of it, but slavery still remains.
It remains.
And that's the toughest part about it all is that people profit off of this entire system.
So
it won't change.
So let me ask you, because I've heard it put so many different ways, or I hear comments from people, and they'll say, well, black people aren't really oppressed, and we just need to realize our power, and we need to, it comes at me in so many forms, and it is all I can take to quit commenting after a while. But that we're allowing, we're not stepping into our power, so to speak, and overcoming this plight of the black man that we, or the plight of the black race. What's your view? What would you say to that? Give me some new information.
Right. And the funny thing is, so we do have that a lot, right? And I will acknowledge my own privilege, right? Being from where I'm from, I've been able to. And I think we've all been right. Like we haven't had
as hard.
Right, 100%. But with that being said, at the end of the day, whenever you're pulled over, or whenever you apply for a job, whenever you apply for a home loan or business loan, you still check black, right? And that's what it comes down to is no matter how successful you are in this country, you're still seen as black. And that's the tough part. There's always that qualifier of, you're successful, you're well spoken for a black person. You know, you're successful for a black person, right? You're good looking for a black person. But hold on, like this is what it's come to. And I think that I guess why I would say that that's not true whenever we say, well, you know, we need to realize our own power. It's still impossible for the majority of black people.
Right.
For the majority of black people, the opportunity to just truly work hard, achieve, and get to a level of people that don't look like them would be at, it isn't realistic.
It's not.
You know? And we look at our own families and you start seeing people who are similar age and similar position who don't quite get to the level that you get. Some of them, you know, we keep going back to choices. People are like, well, they should make better choices. Yeah. We should have better options. we should receive better options in our communities when it comes to. So as long as we still have the majority of blacks being found in major cities, and as long as those situations are still unequal, inadequate, that's why we'll continue to have issues with you know, true placement and true advancement of black people. And I think that anytime someone says that, they're looking at a very narrow segment of the population. So whenever they're like, well, you know, you've done this or you've been successful, or well, you're looking at a very slim, and I still maintain you're looking at a black man of privilege. I'm a black man of privilege.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of black men who aren't born of privilege and who didn't have two parents and who don't have some of the things that help make me successful.
Absolutely.
So
I agree.
I'm in no way too big to admit my own privilege. But I think whenever we say that it's important to look at our white friends and understand, or help them understand their own privilege within the system. And I think that's the toughest part is, as long as we continue to use outliers to speak about the whole black population, you're gonna have people who say, well, racism can't be that bad because you have a black president. You think having a black president means that racism doesn't, which again, it still goes back to it. And I struggle with some of that, but
that we even have to say that.
Right.
That's the thing that people don't get, is like that we even have to say that when you have black president, just shows you that that's not the norm.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
100%.
like, oh, okay, so.
Right. Anytime a black person does something of substance, you know, we have to celebrate it because it's such a rare thing. And the crazy part is, we had a black person, we may not have another one the way you guys been acting. It may be a while before that happens again. We don't know what's going. And that's the terrible thing about it. And you know, as part of that, and I feel like, you know, you talked about, well, it can't be that bad because we've seen black people achieve, we had a black president. Or the other thing they like to go to is, well, what about black on black crime?
I'm glad that was my next.
What about white on white crime?
What about it?
What
about it?
Right. And that's what I think. People need to understand that black on black crime is it an issue? Sure.
Absolutely.
But with that being said, white on white crime is also an issue. Typically, you violate people who are in your community. In most cases, we live next to people who look like us.
Right.
So black on black crime is no more of an issue than white on white crime. At the end of the day, white people murder white people. Right? Black people murder, that's part of how our communities are arranged. But the issue is, it's only brought up whenever we want to discredit the black argument, when we want to undermine racism or oppression.
You say that
well, who cares about police killing each other when you guys kill each other?
Yeah. That's the go-to.
And the funny thing is, I would go to, cool, well, if a black man murders a black man, he's going to be arrested, he's going to be charged, and he's going to get the book thrown at him in terms of...
Max.
Right, 100%. He's getting punished. If a cop murders a black man, he gets administrative leave, which is probably paid.
It's paid.
And then he might see a grand jury, probably not, and then he's going to go get a job. And life goes on. So that's the issue is, black on black crime is irrelevant in terms of how we see systemic oppression. Is it an issue within the black community? Sure, there's some things that need to change, but also understand why black on black crime exists. Understand why again, neighborhoods look like that in major cities. And it's not by accident, it was by choice. It was the way we create 100%. And again, if we talked about that in education, if we made black history part of American history, maybe that would come up and maybe we'd have more people who are aware of some of the issues. But we treat black, and again, another thing we like to bring up, well, blacks have their own TV channel, and they have their own month. Black History is a month because Black history is denied a place in American history.
Right.
And if it was part of American history, every day would be Black history.
Every day.
But it's not. And that's part of the issue. Again, we go back to if we accepted Black history and made each other aware of it.
Mainstream, yeah.
Correct. Then we'd take steps. We'd have people who are aware and maybe take steps to change it.
Yeah.
But right now, it's so like I feel like we view Black history as this thing that's on this foreign planet that was hundreds of years ago, and we talk about
is it February again?
Right. Oh,
yeah.
Black History Month is slavery, Martin Luther King. That's it.
And we really get shorted because you got Valentine's Day there, you got President's Day, you got MLK. It's short day. I have to find that breakdown, but the breakdown is really about a week. It's like 7 days because you cut off the weekends and all. It's like 7 days.
And the thing is, I truly think that you'd have more movement if Black history was part of American history. But
and
again,
that's that should be something we should focus on as getting that in the schools. And I know there's a movement going on now
in the Joplin area Catholic schools. And Dr. Street will be with us next week to talk about the petition that's moving inside one of the smallest schools in the Joplin area. So Joplin area Catholic schools, Macaulay is the high school. They've started a petition, the alumni, to get more diverse studies, a whole segment on it. And she'll be here to tell you more about it, but I'm excited about it. And I didn't graduate from there, but they had the petition set up where if you ever attended, you could sign. So I signed. And she'll be here to talk more about that next week.
Nice. Yeah. Well, Jordan, I mean, man, we could go on forever and ever, and it's actually needed, but we got some time constraints with us. But we thank you for agreeing to be on the show with us today.
Appreciate you having me.
Because that's knowledge that needs to be heard. That's knowledge that needs to be implemented if possible, and it is possible. And another thing that you had said, or that we discussed, it's like, when they say, "Oh, minority and majority," well, I'm not a minority, but those are words that are used to further hamper, and white supremacy. No, I don't think anybody's supreme over me.
Right.
So just sometimes little simple things like that can be the beginning of moving into these larger areas that we can make a change in.
Very true. At the end of the day, if we're able to educate ourselves, educate those around us, and vote, we're gonna have a chance to create change.
Say vote again.
Vote.
Need y'all to be registered.
Vote federally. And not just vote. Make educated votes. Understand what
yes.
you're looking for. Don't vote for Joe Biden because it says Democrat next to it.
Yeah.
Vote for Joe Biden because he's who deserves your vote and he's who speaks to your cause.
Yeah.
Make sure you do your research.
That's all you need to say. Make sure you do your research.
Yep.
And with that,
we got a question though.
We got a question.
The question is, what can you do this week? What can we all do this week? Give us some last minute words to make a change, to make a difference, to impact your little network. What can we do?
Oh, that's a very good question.
We always want to lead with action.
We talked about action. That's a very good question. I think if I were saying what can we do and talking to the people around us, I always tell my friends to educate themselves, right? And I think part of our mission as blacks is to help our white friends educate themselves. So if you can recommend a book, something like White Fragility, and if you could recommend a movie,
everybody should.
Something like 13, you're on the right path.
Okay.
If you can help someone just change the way they look at the world and look at maybe the scope that blacks see it through, I think you're going to start that process of truly creating change.
Yeah.
So in a week, if we're looking at how to directly impact change, have a conversation with somebody. Talk to somebody, and it doesn't have to be a white. Talk to someone different. Talk to someone who maybe doesn't have your exact same experience, and maybe that you can get a little bit different perspective and see how to help change people.
I love it.
Get a different view.
Get a different
Educate
view.
yourself and get a different view. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next week, Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Sharp, people. Sharp. Y'all have a good week.
All right.